Hi, everyone. I'm Josh. Welcome back to Learn English Podcast 360. Today, I want to share a very simple story with you. But sometimes the simplest stories can touch our hearts the most. This story is about time. Not money, not success, not being famous, just time. Life can move very fast sometimes. We wake up early, we go to work, we answer messages, we look at our phones, and before we know it, another day is gone. Have you ever said, I'll do it tomorrow? Tomorrow I'll rest. Tomorrow I'll call my parents. Tomorrow I'll start my dream. Tomorrow I'll finally enjoy life a little more. Oh, maybe we all say those things sometimes. But what if one day tomorrow never really comes? Well, today's story is about a man who slowly learned something very important about life, something many people realize too late. So, relax, take a deep breath, and let's begin tonight's story together. Daniel was 32 years old. He lived alone in a small apartment in a busy city. Every morning, his alarm rang at 6:30. He opened his eyes slowly, looked at the ceiling for a few seconds, and then reached for his phone. Emails, messages, work notifications. Before he even left his bed, his mind already felt tired. Daniel worked for a large company in the city center. The pay was good. His office was modern. People often said he was doing well in life. But deep inside, Daniel did not feel happy. His days all looked the same. Wake up, take the train, go to work, sit in front of a computer for many hours, come home late, eat something quick, look at his phone again, sleep too late, repeat again and again, day after day. Sometimes late at night, Daniel stood near his apartment window and looked at the city lights outside. Cars moved through the streets below him. People walked quickly with tired faces. Everything around him felt busy. And somehow, Daniel had many dreams when he was younger. He wanted to learn the guitar. He wanted to travel. He wanted to write books. He wanted to spend more time with the people he loved. But now, those dreams lived quietly somewhere inside him, like old books covered in dust. Every time he thought about changing his life, he told himself the same thing. I'm too busy. Or maybe, I'll do it later. Daniel said those words so often that he almost believed them. One evening, after a long day at work, Daniel sat alone, eating dinner in front of his laptop. The TV was on, but he was not really watching it. His phone suddenly started ringing. It was his mother. Daniel looked at the screen for a moment before answering. Hi, Mom. Her voice sounded soft and warm, just like always. Daniel, how are you? I'm okay, Mom, just busy. Oh, you always say that, she said with a small laugh. Daniel smiled a little, but he still kept typing on his computer while talking to her. Then his mother became quiet for a second. Daniel, when will you come home and visit me? Daniel stopped typing for a moment. Outside his window, rain slowly touched the glass. He looked back at his computer screen. More emails, more unfinished work. Soon, Mom, he said softly, maybe next month. There was a small silence. His mother answered gently, Okay, I'll wait for you. After the call ended, Daniel sat quietly in his chair. For some reason, he suddenly felt strange, heavy, lonely. The apartment felt quieter than before. But after a few moments, he picked up his phone again and continued working, just like always. Days passed quickly. Monday became Wednesday. Wednesday became Friday. Then another week disappeared. One cold morning, Daniel walked to work holding a cup of coffee in one hand and his phone in the other. People moved around him like fast waves in the city. Nobody looked at each other. Nobody smiled. Everyone seemed to be running somewhere. As Daniel walked past a small park near the train station, something caught his attention. An old man was sitting alone on a wooden bench. The man wore a simple brown coat and held an old book in his hands. Near him, a few birds moved quietly across the ground. The old man looked calm, peaceful, and strangely happy. Daniel slowed down for a moment. He did not know why, but something about the old man felt different. The man did not look rich. He did not look powerful. He did not look important. But his face looked warm and relaxed in a way Daniel had not felt for a very long time. For a few seconds, Daniel simply stood there, watching him. Then someone behind him bumped into his shoulder. "Sorry," the person said quickly before rushing away. Daniel looked at his watch. He was late again. So he quickly walked toward the station and forgot about the old man. Or at least, he tried to. That night, Daniel stayed at the office until almost 10 o'clock. His eyes hurt from looking at the screen all day. His shoulders felt heavy. Everyone else had already gone home. The office was silent now except for the soft sound of keyboards and air machines. Daniel finally stood up, stretched his tired body, and packed his bag. Outside, rain was falling heavily. By the time he reached the station, the last train was gone. "Oh no," Daniel whispered tiredly. He looked around the empty street and sighed. The rain became stronger, so Daniel walked back toward the small park near the station. He stood under a tree, trying to stay dry. And then he saw the old man again. The old man sat on the same bench as before, calm, quiet, peaceful. This time the old man looked up and smiled gently at Daniel. "Long day?" he asked. Daniel gave a weak little laugh. "Yeah, very long." The old man closed his book slowly. Rain sounds filled the quiet night around them. Then the old man asked something simple. "What are you doing with your time?" Daniel smiled a little. "Well, I work. I try to build a better future." The old man nodded slowly. Then he looked out at the rain and said softly, "Oh, people always think they have more time." Daniel suddenly became very quiet. Something about those words touched him deeply, but he did not fully understand why. The rain continued falling softly around them. The old man spoke again. "When I was young, I was always busy too," he said. "I wanted more money, more success, more things." He smiled sadly. "But one day, I looked back and realized something." Daniel listened quietly. The old man looked down at his hands for a moment before speaking again. "I missed many beautiful moments because I thought I had more time." The old man's words stayed inside Daniel's mind long after the rain stopped. Time is not money. Time is life. Daniel heard those words again and again in his head while walking home that night. At first he tried to ignore them, but somehow he could not. The next morning, Daniel woke up like always. The alarm rang. He reached for his phone, messages, emails, notifications. But this time something felt different. For a few quiet seconds, Daniel simply lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. He suddenly asked himself a strange question. What am I really doing with my life? The question made him uncomfortable. So he quickly got out of bed and started preparing for work. But the feeling stayed with him. On the train that morning, Daniel looked around carefully. Something he had never really done before. People sat quietly with tired faces. Almost everyone was staring at a phone screen. Some looked stressed. Some looked empty. Nobody talked. Nobody smiled. The train moved through the city like a machine carrying tired people from one place to another. Daniel slowly looked down at his own phone in his hands. Then he turned it off and placed it inside his pocket. For the first time in a long time, he simply looked outside the train window. The sky was gray. Buildings passed slowly. People walked quickly through the cold morning streets. And suddenly, Daniel felt afraid. Not afraid of losing his job, not afraid of failure, but afraid of waking up one day old and tired, wondering where all his years had gone. That feeling stayed with him all week. At work, Daniel started noticing small things. His manager looked exhausted every day. One of his coworkers quietly ate lunch alone at her desk. Another man kept saying, "I'm busy," again and again, like Daniel always did. Everyone looked like they were running. But running toward what? One evening, Daniel stayed late at the office again. Outside the windows, the city lights glowed softly in the dark. He looked around the nearly empty office. Then he remembered something the old man had said. "I missed many beautiful moments because I thought I had more time." Daniel slowly closed his laptop. For some reason, he suddenly thought about his mother. He remembered her voice on the phone. "Daniel, when will you come home?" A heavy feeling filled his chest. He opened his phone and looked at old pictures from years ago. His mother smiling in the kitchen, his mother standing outside their small house, his mother holding a birthday cake when Daniel was younger. Daniel stared quietly at the screen. Then he noticed something painful. In the newer pictures, his mother looked older now. Her hair had more gray. Her smile looked more tired. Time had been moving quietly this whole time, and Daniel had not noticed. That weekend, something changed inside him. On Saturday morning, Daniel woke up early. For once, he did not open his laptop. He did not check work emails. Instead, he packed a small bag. Then he bought a train ticket to his hometown. The train ride was long and quiet. Soft music played through his headphones while trees and fields moved past the window. For the first time in many months, Daniel was not thinking about work. He was thinking about life. When Daniel finally arrived, the town looked almost the same as before. Small streets, quiet houses, old trees moving softly in the wind. Everything felt slower there, calmer. Daniel walked toward his mother's house, carrying a small bag in one hand. When he knocked on the door, he suddenly felt nervous. A few seconds later, the door slowly opened. His mother stood there looking surprised. "Daniel?" For a moment, she simply looked at him. Then her face slowly filled with happiness. "Oh, Daniel, you're here." She hugged him tightly. And somehow, that simple moment felt warmer than anything Daniel had felt in a very long time. Inside the house, everything smelled familiar. Soup, tea, old books, warm food. It smelled like home. His mother smiled while preparing lunch. "You should have told me you were coming," she said softly. Daniel smiled a little. "I wanted to surprise you." They cooked together in the small kitchen just like years ago. His mother cut vegetables slowly while Daniel prepared the table. Simple things, very normal things. But somehow, and they felt important. During lunch, they talked for hours about old memories, about neighbors, about life. His mother laughed while telling stories Daniel had not heard in many years, and for the first time in a long time, Daniel laughed too. Really laughed. Not the small, polite laugh he used at work. A real laugh. Later that evening, the sun slowly disappeared outside the window, while soft orange light filled the room. His mother brought him a cup of tea and sat beside him quietly. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence felt peaceful. Then Daniel looked at his mother carefully, and suddenly, his heart hurt. Her hair was much more gray now. Her hands moved more slowly when she picked up her tea. Small lines covered her face. Time had touched her gently, year after year. Daniel looked down quietly. He suddenly realized something painful. While he had been busy chasing work and money and future plans, life had continued moving forward without waiting for him. His mother was getting older, and he could never get those lost years back. A quiet sadness filled his chest. His mother noticed his face and smiled softly. "What's wrong?" she asked. Daniel shook his head slowly. "Nothing, Mom." But deep inside, he understood something important for the first time. Time never stops moving. Not for success, not for money, not for anyone. That night, Daniel could not sleep very well. He lay awake listening to the soft sounds of the house, the clock ticking quietly, the wind outside, the floor making small sounds. Everything felt calm and strangely emotional. Daniel realized that many of the best moments in life were actually very small. A quiet dinner, a simple conversation, a warm cup of tea, time with someone you love, not expensive things, not busy schedules, not endless work. Just simple moments that disappear very quietly if we do not pay attention. The next morning, Daniel woke up early and walked outside alone. The air felt cool and fresh. Birds moved through the sky above him. For the first time in years, Daniel was not rushing anywhere, and it felt wonderful. After returning to the city a few days later, Daniel slowly began changing small things in his life. Nothing dramatic, nothing perfect, but small things. He started sleeping earlier. Sometimes he walked home instead of taking the train. He called old friends more often. He spent less time looking at his phone late at night. Sometimes after work, he sat quietly and watched the sunset between the buildings. And little by little, life started feeling different. The city was still busy. Work was still stressful sometimes. Problems still existed. But now, Daniel felt more awake inside his own life, more present, more alive. He finally understood something many people forget. Many people wait for the perfect time to live. But life is happening now. Not next year, not someday, not after success, now. Because time is not something we can save for later. It is something we are already spending every single day. One quiet morning, Daniel returned to the small park near the station, the same park where he first met the old man. Birds moved softly across the ground. The wind carried the fresh smell of morning rain. Daniel sat down on the wooden bench and closed his eyes for a moment. The old man was not there anymore, only soft light, moving trees, and peaceful silence. But Daniel smiled quietly because somehow the old man's words had changed his life. Daniel took a slow, deep breath. And for the first time in many years, and he did not feel like life was running away from him anymore. Oh, maybe the value of time is not about doing more. Maybe it is about feeling more, living more, loving more. Before you sleep tonight, think about this. What are you giving your time to? Because one day, we may realize the time was the most valuable thing we ever had. If this story helped you relax, reflect, or practice your English, please support Learn English Podcast 360 by liking, sharing, and subscribing.